Title: He Never Stopped Believing, A Boy's Quest for His Father's Love. In the heart of a quiet village surrounded by lush greenery, 10-year-old Oba clutched his younger sister, Tare, who coughed weakly against his shoulder. The scent of damp earth lingered in the air, mingling with the aroma of wildflowers that dotted the rolling hills. Beside him, little Eniola whimpered, her frail voice barely audible over the gentle rustle of leaves. Her small body burned with fever, her cheeks flushed with an unnatural redness that pierced Oba's heart. Once, their lives had been filled with laughter and love, but now that idyllic existence felt like a distant dream, stolen away by betrayal, abandonment, and despair. Oba stood at the threshold of a journey, a quest to find the one man who had loved him unconditionally, his father. His determination burned fiercely, fueled by a desperate hope to piece their broken family back together. But it was a journey fraught with pain, uncertainty, and a weight far heavier than any child should bear. Kindly watch, subscribe, and share this wonderful story of a boy's journey to his father. Oba's life had once been vibrant and whole. His father, Kunle, a gentleman with a booming laugh and warm, steady hands, had filled their home with love and security. Kunle's love for his wife, Kemi, had seemed unshakable, but life's cruelties had other plans. When Oba was 7, his world crumbled. Kunle had discovered Kemi's betrayal, a fleeting moment of infidelity with an old lover. It was a crack that shattered their once perfect family. Despite Kemi's tearful pleas for forgiveness, Kunle could not reconcile his broken trust. Bitterness seeped into Kemi's heart. Unable to bear the weight of her guilt and Kunle's coldness, she made a choice that would haunt her children forever. Taking Oba, 3-year-old Tar, and the unborn Eniola, she disappeared without a trace, severing them from the father who had adored them. Consumed by shame, Kemi avoided returning home. She feared her family's judgment and had convinced herself that leaving with her children was the only way to move forward. 3 months after Eniola's birth, Kemi's resolve faltered. Chasing the illusion of greener pastures abroad, she left her children in the care of Mama Titi, an elderly widow with a kind heart but limited means. Mama Titi embraced the children as her own, showering them with love despite her modest circumstances. But tragedy struck again when Mama Titi passed away 2 years later, leaving Oba and his siblings utterly alone. Mama Titi's relatives, seeing the children as burdens, sent them away with cold indifference. Homeless and vulnerable, Oba led his sisters to a derelict building on the village's outskirts. Its crumbling walls and broken windows offered scant shelter, but it became their sanctuary. For 2 grueling years, Oba shouldered the responsibility of caring for Tare and Eniola. Each day began with him scouring the village for odd jobs, fetching water, cleaning farms, running errands, anything that might earn a few coins or scraps of food. Nights were the hardest. As Eniola's fever worsened, Oba sat by her side, whispering reassurances he wasn't sure he believed. "Hold on, Eniola. I'll make things better, I promise." Tare, now 5, rarely laughed. Her once bright eyes had dimmed, reflecting a childhood robbed of innocence. She clung to Oba like a lifeline, her small hand gripping his shirt as if letting go would mean losing everything. Eniola's condition deteriorated with each passing day. Malnutrition and sickness left her tiny frame fragile, her cries reduced to faint whimpers. Desperation clawed at Oba's heart. He knew he couldn't sustain them much longer. One morning, with trembling hands and a pounding heart, he approached Auntie Grace, a kind trader who sometimes spared him leftovers. "Auntie," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need your help. My sisters are dying. I want to find my father." Grace's eyes filled with sorrow as she took in the sight of the gaunt, dirt-streaked boy before her. I don't have much, Oba, she said gently. I barely make enough to feed my own children. Please, Auntie, Oba pleaded, his voice cracking. I know where he lives. If we can get to Lagos, I can find him. I just need transport fare. I'll pay you back one day, I promise. Moved by the boy's sincerity and the evident suffering of his sisters, Grace made a promise. I'll save up, she said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Give me a little time. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Kunle had rebuilt his life. He had remarried Funmi, a kind and compassionate woman whose laughter filled their home. Together, they had twin boys who brought him joy. Yet, Kunle's heart ached for the children he had lost. Not a day passed when he didn't wonder about Oba and Tare. Did they know he hadn't abandoned them? Did they remember the father who once cradled them in his arms? Kunle had made countless attempts to find them. He visited Kemi's family in hopes of tracking her down, but their answers were always the same. We haven't seen her. Though he tried to mask his frustration, he suspected they were hiding something. He hired private investigators, distributing the only photos he had of Oba and Tare, but their efforts yielded no results. His nights were filled with prayers and tears, a father's silent plea to the heavens. Funmi often found him staring at the children's photos, his fingers tracing their faces. I'll find them one day, he whispered to her, his voice trembling. Despite her unwavering support, the weight of his failure gnawed at his soul. Weeks passed, and Grace finally gathered enough money for the children's journey. With a tearful farewell, she handed Oba a small bundle of food and clothing. Take care of your sisters, she said, her voice trembling. God will guide you. She entrusted them to an acquaintance traveling to Lagos, who promised to help them locate the estate where Kunle lived. The bus ride was long and grueling. Eniola's fever worsened, and Oba held her tightly, whispering promises of a better life. Tare clung to his arm, her wide eyes brimming with fear and hope. When they finally arrived, the sprawling chaos of Lagos overwhelmed them. The cacophony of honking cars and bustling crowds was a stark contrast to their quiet village. Oba led his sisters to a popular church he remembered from Mama Titi's stories. Papa lives near here, he assured Tare, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Hours of wandering brought them to an upscale estate. Exhausted and hungry, Oba approached the security guards at the gate. My father lives here, he said confidently. Do you have his number? One guard asked dismissively. No, Oba admitted, his heart sinking. Then leave, the guard said, shooing them away. Tears streamed down Oba's face. Please, my sister is dying, he cried, clutching Eniola. Just then, a familiar car approached. The driver, a former neighbor, recognized Oba. What's going on here? He demanded. They're claiming they know someone here, the guard replied. They do, the man said firmly. Let them in. Inside the estate, Oba found his father's house. The gateman tried to send them away again, but Oba stood his ground. This is my father's house, he shouted, tears streaming down his face. The commotion drew the attention of Funmi, who had just returned home. She froze when she saw the children. Oba's face, though gaunt and weary, was unmistakable. Come in, she said urgently, ushering them inside. When Kunle returned that evening, he found his wife cradling a feverish child with 2 other children by her side. His heart stopped when he recognized Oba and Tare. Papa! Oba cried, rushing into his father's arms. Kunle held his son tightly, tears streaming down his face. I've been looking for you, he whispered, while also holding his daughter Tare. Funmi called a doctor from the estate, who stabilized Eniola. There was no question about Eniola's parentage. Her resemblance to Kunle was uncanny. As the night wore on, the family pieced together the story of their separation. Kunle wept openly, vowing never to let his children suffer again. Much later, Kunle was able to contact Kemi through mutual acquaintances. Their conversation was strained and painful. Kemi, now living with another man, had built a new life in her country of abode. She admitted her shame over abandoning the children but expressed relief that Kunle had found them. "I thought it was the only way to give them a chance," she said, her voice tinged with guilt. But her words offered little solace. Kunle hung up the phone with a heavy heart, knowing that reconciliation was impossible. In the days that followed, Kunle and Funmi worked tirelessly to restore the children's health. Eniola was hospitalized, while Tara and Oba adjusted to their new life. Though scars remained, their reunion marked the beginning of healing. Oba's bravery and resilience had brought them home, and Kunle's love would ensure they never felt abandoned again. Kunle took Oba back to the village where they had stayed, retracing the path that had led them to him. He visited Auntie Grace and thanked her with heartfelt words and tears in his eyes. "You saved my children," he said. Kunle offered her funds to expand her business, a gesture of gratitude that brought tears to Grace's eyes. "You're a blessing," he told her. Together, they began to rebuild the family they had lost, proving that love could overcome even the deepest wounds. Their story became a testament to hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds of family, a story that would echo in the hearts of all who heard it. The end. Thanks for watching. Kindly subscribe, like, and share.